that. The tops are breakaway. Hello, everyone. Good morning. The regular meeting of the Finance Standing Committee of the CSD Board of Directors. We have a quorum here, all members present.
Yeah, not mine. Go ahead.
Are we starting over?
I don't know, we lost connection.
Yeah. Take two.
Alex, can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay, so I guess I can kind of recap slightly. I don't know how the connection went out, I think about a minute ago or a minute into my little introduction. We stopped the quorum, called to order, no chair report, and there are no ad hoc subcommittee reports. And I think it was at the stage of asking for committee member communications. If you have anything briefly to report on, questions to ask for clarification, whatever, this is the time for members of the committee to speak up. Does anyone have anything they want to bring up in a brief mention of your activities or anything that's relevant to what we're doing, but not an agenda item? Okay, saying none, move on to public comment. This is my invitation to, our invitation to people who are watching online or anybody who's here in the room, and no one here is in the room for the public, to speak on issues that are that are not on this agenda, but are under the purview of this committee. I believe we have, as I said, two people online. One of them is Mr. Dujic. The other one is Alexander Collins, just with possibly the hard science. So, Mr. Dujic, do you have any public comment? No other point, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, and thank you, but no comment today.
Thank you very much. I believe that's all we have that's all we have in the audience, the online audience. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Minutes of the February 27th, 2024 regular meeting. I saw a couple of things in my inspection of the minutes. I'll ask anybody else if they saw anything too they might want to change. Speaking of Dennis Dujic, his name was spelled, needs to be spelled correctly. I think I can ask him for this. It's D-U-D-Z-I-K, right? Yes, D-U-D-Z-I-K. That's on under item 4A. Also, this is a question maybe for parliamentary procedure. When there is a vote, and there's a nay vote, I've always identified the person voting no or people voting no. In other words, so you know who voted which way. Four members voted aye, one member voted nay. I would request that we add both under the 4A item and under the 4C item that I believe Ms. McDowell voted nay on 4A and Mr. Pearson voted nay on 4C. Clarify who voted before. Those are the changes I saw. Does anyone else have any other changes they want to make or update or clarifications? Fine. So I'll entertain a motion to adopt the minutes, approve the minutes as amended or in my suggestions.
So moved.
Okay. Second. It's moved by Mr. Pearson, seconded by Mr. Hendrickson, that these minutes be adopted as with the corrections, 3 corrections that I noted, shared great on them. Roll call vote. Shall I do the roll call? Okay. Mr. Pearson.
Aye.
Mr. Hendrickson. Aye. Ms. Guzman.
Aye.
Mr. McCann.
Aye.
Ms. McDowell. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to the business of the day. I'll start with this. We're starting with the auditor's report presentation. I'll turn this over to Ms. Fritz to introduce it and also to introduce Alex Tom, who is our auditor, who will be here to answer questions.
Can you spell his name?
H-O-M, H-O-M, Alexander Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So agenda item 4A is to receive and discuss the independent auditor's report and financial statements for fiscal year 22-23. You'll see this in your report as well as in the staff report. I summarized some of the main figures here. And as President Gray mentioned, we do have our auditor on the line to be able to, he's going to explain further and answer any questions. So Alex?
Alex?
All right.
Tom, go ahead.
All right.
Well,
So good morning, everyone. My name is Alexander Hom from Moss-Levy and Hardsheim, and we are the district's auditors. We gave the district an unmodified clean opinion. In terms of how the audit went, there was one finding, mainly having to do with one pretty much vacation accrual. It had to do with Matt's vacation accrual. And one of the things was it's pretty much the language in his contract saying that he gets 21 days per year in vacation. But however, in the system, when it was entered in, the district put him as pretty much accruing at, a year 0 employee. So he was getting I believe it was, give me a second, about a week of 2 weeks vacation, essentially, or 10 days almost. So then that pretty much brought that attention to the district, and they're getting that fixed. Other than that, in terms of changes of the financial statements, as I mentioned last year, the net pension liability pretty much, since it's a year behind, this last year's audit, it was based on 21 numbers. So then the market was doing really, really well. So that's why the net pension liability went down. And if you notice, it went back pretty much up and maybe a little bit, then some more, because it was based off of June 30, 2022 numbers, which of course the stock market wasn't doing too hot around that time. Also, well, you'll see in the financial statements, the certificates of participations in there now. And other than that, everything else was pretty much status quo. Is there any questions regarding the audit process or the financial statements in general?
Mr. Pearson.
Yeah, you mentioned the pension. In the opinion of the auditors, are we in good position on the pension funding, or do we need to increase our, what, funding of that on a yearly basis?
That's kind of it's based. It's a tough question to answer because mainly the pension liability is based on essentially, like actuarial numbers. So the thing is like the whole reasoning why they have all the rules and the accounting of it is pretty much pretty much to show that in terms of the status of like CalPERS and stuff like that. In terms of the number, that dollar amount to the district, it depends. It depends on pretty much CalPERS. So like the way CalPERS is doing it is they're adjusting the rate as they go, right? So that's why you see these influxes of they're not gonna ask you to have like millions of dollars to throw into it because like one, it's based on like if all your current employees right now stay the course, retire, that's how much technically the at this point in time the pension is short by. So it's not exactly like this is the exact dollar amount that you owe. It's more like kind of a guesstimation. If every employee stays the course, if they have 3% salary increases and stuff like that. So it's kind of more on PERS, and they'll do it by adjusting the rate up.
Okay,
So one of the ways we can handle this is invest in an investment fund that basically would earn us money to help pay off our yearly expense towards our pension. That is one way to help us manage the yearly cost.
so would that be a separate investment?
It's a
fund?
separate investment fund and it has a title. It's a number and I just can't remember it off the top of my head. I've talked to CalPERS about it and as well mentioned it to the investment advisors, but it's a very specific type of investment fund where the money is earmarked to pay for the liability. So what it would take is us, the board, deciding to fund that, with any extra money, maybe some reserve money that we had, with the intent of that the earnings on it would help us pay our yearly liability.
Is that a common practice in like districts and local governments do that?
I don't know. I haven't done the research on how many governments do it. I just had the conversations with CalPERS and learned a little bit.
Mr. Hondo?
Yeah.
Is that a common practice?
Alex, do you know?
Based on what I see with like I do a lot of like the probably on the small to the bigger small kind of districts, they don't do it. And I think it's just more about I think it's more about capacity, being able to do it. I think that's the thing. Like they don't have the reserves to do it, or that's usually the case. So again, it's strictly up to the decision of you guys.
But is the money pulled together with other districts? Or do you sit alone? Or LAFCO in here? I mean,
Well, these
what's the
investment
umbrella?
funds are managed by, you can get them through different companies. So
Yes.
CalPERS has one, so I'm sure they're pooling everybody's money together. They handle the investment side of it, and I'm sure it's cool.
Yeah, because if you're going to be pooling it with other agencies, other districts and so forth, you're going to get little CalPERS. Because
Yeah,
that's CalPERS
we don't
got
make that decision.
Yeah.
We're deciding to invest in a fund.
Yeah.
Whoever, what agent, whatever company you're investing with does the management of that.
Yeah, Mr. Hinton, yeah.
Yeah, I did have a question. On page 45, there's a list of years that have passed by. And there apparently there's some, or we don't need some stipulation in GASB number 75 that would derive having to have an actuarial calculation performed. I wanted to find out if that's a function of us being small, that it doesn't drive that, or is there something that we're missing, a benefit that we're missing by not performing that? This is his page for you.
It's page 45.
Let me get to it.
Yeah, Mr. Hahn, yes.
Yes, please.
The question again is,
Should we be doing an actuarial to have true numbers? I mean, it seems like we're able to float under the radar of that of that statement and not have to perform it. But are we fooling ourselves by thinking that we're okay
No.
when the
So-
actuarial tell us no?
Yeah.
You guys do have an actuarial done every year for OPEB. This is mainly relating to the actuaries not calculating like, hey, you're required to do they usually would like with the bigger pooled OPEB plans, they would pretty much calculate how much like required of everything. Since you guys are kind of a small like single entity kind of health plan, it's not required because you guys are paying it as you go versus having to like, you're pre-funding it or something like that where you kind of need to do the actuarial determined contribution because you're pretty much, calculating to fund future things, future plans. But you guys, so this is more, it's more because it's based on the plan and you guys are just paying as retirees go. It's called pay as you go. So then when people retire, then you just pay it as as it comes due, essentially.
We're not trying to pre-fund our, basically retiree healthcare.
Correct. And,
Yeah.
and that's the whole point of the actuarial determined contribution.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. I had a question about, Mr. Hong, about getting back to the PERS, their forecast or whatever.
Mhm.
I guess we're on their discount rate, which is used, well, this actually is actually 2 pages. One's on page 39 of the report, and then page 38, there's mention of discount rate. I know the discount rate was lowered to 6.9%. I think it would have been 7.15, yeah, earlier, reflecting as a lower expectation of return. But I noticed there was a test, there's a paragraph under the discount rate where there's a possibility, given the results of stress testing, we could go down to what's called the municipal bond rate. What is that rate now? Because 6.9%, it seems like it's much higher than the municipal bond rate would be. And I wonder if we dodged a bullet by surviving the stress test.
Correct. So usually what PERS does, they do it in like, I forget the amount of years cycle. Like they lowered it to 6.9 in the last cycle. So then like they'll probably reevaluate it in like maybe I believe in 25 or 26. So like again, I can attest to it for CalPERS, but mainly they're not gonna try to lower it to, because the municipal bond rate, I believe right now is probably what, like it's over 5%, I believe.
Around 5, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, around 5. So like the thing is like CalPERS has always been afraid to lower their discount rate because it's been 7.5 for God knows how long, and then they finally just kind of lowered it after pretty much the implementation of this because like they got to see the number now. So then I highly doubt they're going to try to lower it. Like it took them like, shoot, maybe the 6.9 was pretty much in the talks for like at least like 6-7 years. So it's in terms of it lowering even more, like they're going to probably, it's going to take that same amount of time. So like in the near future, they're not going to lower it even more.
I'm not going to do anything drastic to
Correct.
leave us with the holding the bag, as it were, with the big liability.
Correct. So they know if they do that, then it's going to be an uptick in everything, and then they're going to have chaos. So I highly doubt PERS is going to do that. That's why they're going to try to adjust pretty much the employer rate more than they try to do the discount rate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And just so I guess so we all know what the employer rate is. The employees pay some. Maybe it's just go over this with everybody here so they know what goes on with PERS. We pay, CCSD pays, and then the employees also pay a rate. They pay up to a certain percentage, and then we pay another percentage of their salary. What are those percentages? It's clear, just so I can refresh.
It's on page 36.
Oh, 36. Okay. Good. Cause I was,
Depends when they're hired and,
oh, I always see, they have, they're different,
they have different classifications.
different
They
classifications,
did an update, the PEPRA
Mhm.
is gonna be different than the miscellaneous.
Mhm. Okay, so we have the employees paying their full amount, right?
Correct.
Their full
Yes.
amount, but then we paid additional amount.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
as you can see, that there's 6 different tiers that we belong under. And so depending on which tier they fall in, they would, miscellaneous classic, for example, the employee is paying 8% every paycheck
Mhm.
towards
Yeah.
their helpers. And then the employer contribution, the 15.25.
2.5, and then for the more recent hires, which have less generous retirement benefits, they're, which page is this again? Because
Page 36 of Alex's report.
yeah.
Yeah, so the PEPRA would be the newer people hired on or after January 1st, 2013. And as you can see,
Oh, I see, yes.
the classic, they pay 7.47%. Or I'm sorry, 6.75 is the employee contribution, and the employer contribution is significantly reduced.
Mhm. Yeah, so I beg your pardon on that one, because I overlooked the numbers there, but I wanted to sort of point out, basically, make sure we understood we have our share, the CSD share of this is large, but it's smaller for the more recent hires, which is, a trend in reforming pensions that's been going on. Mr. Hahn, any more things you wanted to point out to us, draw our attention to, that we haven't asked about?
Not that I can think of.
Is there any public comment?
Keith has a question.
Oh, Keith, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question on that. On the very next page, on page 39 of Mr. Hahn's report and 52 of ours, as you look at the distribution of where those funds go, the very last line of that says leverage. And I just had 2 questions relative to that. Is that similar to like my margin account with Fidelity?
That's in terms of the description of it, probably yes, but that's more of a CalPERS question, because that's more the allocation of CalPERS.
Okay.
It is probably, yeah, they probably borrow money to invest in, it's leveraged investments. So it's, you borrow money to put into an investment and you get more return.
Yeah.
That way.
Provided it
More
doesn't
risk,
go
more
down.
return, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Hahn.
I have.
Mr. Pearson, yeah, Davis.
The water fund and wastewater funds still owe the general fund some monies.
Yeah, the wastewater fund made a payment this year, so they have 1 more left, and the water fund still has. Do you see what page it's on?
Oh, I
think
saw-
there are
I noted that
152,000.
too, yeah, I saw that too. It's,
Well, page 43 of his report.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's 152,000, the water.
Yes.
157 water fund.
doesn't ask if that's been paid off. We had a schedule for paying it off for adoption about 2 years ago.
Yeah, so both of them are paying off. Is that what was adopted?
That's my recollection. In the process of paying off.
I'm not seeing the exact number, but it should be paid off next year.
Okay. Next year being. Wastewater and water.
This year, this current year. that
Current
we're-
year, the numbers, the next audit should show
23,
them
yeah, the
paid
next
off. That's what I
audit
thought.
cycle,
Yeah.
it should be
That's what I thought.
Both of them.
It'll be
correct.
I had a question. This is a matter, this isn't really about numbers, but it's about description on the, this is a management's discussion actually, on page 3 of the report. There's reference to, the CCSD's services. One is resource conservation, which I noticed is part of the water fund. And I don't know what that's referring to. And then also we leave off street lighting for what it's worth. We do provide street lighting in a limited way.
I saw that.
But what does the resource conservation refer to? It's on page 6 as well.
Right here.
Yeah, from I mean, from my understanding, resources conservation is what we put into, like, if we had any, rebates that we provide, say, hey, dishwasher, we'll give everybody who changes it out to a smart or an energy efficient star, we'll give you $200 back. Resources, conservation always comes like shower heads that we
Yeah.
hand out to the hotels to make sure that they're compliant with their gallons per minute and water conservation items. Yeah.
So that stuff comes out of the enterprise as opposed to the aid, I guess you call it, or the discounts to, on like the sewer bills, or the water bills, based on economic circumstances, those come out of the general fund. So these are things that are financed out of the water, service fees. Okay. And street lighting, I guess, should be added, actually. I don't know if it's a big deal to add it, but it's a small part of the general, and I think it's sort of I don't know how much money actually is put into it, but we have about, I don't know.
Yeah, we put a lot of money into it recently.
Yeah, I mean,
We changed them all out.
Mhm. It's part of the facility, probably, I don't know, it's in the
Right, should
facility
be on there.
budget, yeah, I would think so. Yeah, so we should probably put that
I
in.
mean, maybe they just incorporated it into facilities and resources and left it off. I mean, it's been written this way for a while. So,
If it's in facilities and resources,
Yes,
and
it is.
it's all understood, I don't think we need to change it, but I think it's good to clarify if people ask
okay.
what that is. Okay, and, any more questions? Again, any more questions? Yeah, keep that.
To do, yes. On the second page, that under the bold title, required supplementary information, that very last sentence that's there, and then again, something similar shows up in the final paragraph as well, but it says, don't express opinion, or provide assurances on information because of the limited procedures do not provide us sufficient evidence. My question is that are we lacking procedures for that? Is there something that, I know we're working with Denise to take and modify some of the reporting. Is there something we're missing that we
No.
should be providing?
No, it's boilerplate template essentially, because like it's mainly just supplementary information. So it's like the OPEB is from the actuarial, the pensions from PERS. It's not like we're auditing PERS or the planets or the actuarials themselves.
Okay.
So that's why you got to put it in there for specifically those sections. And the MD&A is written by management. We just make sure that it's sound and it matches up with the report. So we don't audit the MD&A, and that's pretty much what the sentence means essentially.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And I did have one last question.
Yes, go, answer all the questions you want.
It's on page 35, and it has to do with starting to take and pay off the bond issue, the $12 million bond issue. And I have to confess, I didn't go back and look at the budget stuff that you provided me, it was great, but but there's an interest payment that's due in 2024. And so then that's in there. I just wanted to verify that that's in our 2024 budget.
Yes.
Okay, because it's sizable.
Well, there are two each year, right? Bonds.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we
As for the WRF too, the same way.
We made a payment 22, 23 as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
So is the fire department under a CalPERS or are they 401ks?
They're CalPERS.
They are CalPERS.
The safety, yeah.
And we all have access to a 457 plan
Okay.
if employees choose to utilize that.
Okay,
And that's an addition.
Well, no, you don't change. You have CalPERS no matter
no
what,
matter what.
but
That's
you
addition,
can
yeah.
contribute, that's a separate.
Separate, yeah. Out of their own.
Even Matthew?
Yes, even Matthew.
I had a couple of questions, actually. This is for, I think, for Denise more than Fred's. On page 18, yeah, there's reference to COP premium. Well, the current portion of the COP premium is that would be related to the bond issue, right? But I don't know what that exactly means. It's in the liabilities under
Okay.
both current and non-current.
And that would be an Alex. Can you
Alex,
speak
you
to
have
that?
that handle that? Yeah.
Okay, so with the so you guys sold $12.1 million worth of bonds, right? And then in reality, you got about $2.3 million in cash. And the extra amount is the premium that the underwriters and the bonds, I guess the issuers sold it at pretty much. They sold it extra like $250,000 worth of money on it. And they usually what the bond people do, they use that to pretty much cover the cost of the bond, to issue the bond. And accounting rules is that you have to pretty much amortize this premium of like 240 something thousand dollars over the life of the bond. And that's what we're showing on there. So it starts at 244 and it goes down every like $8,000 a year essentially until the bond's done. And it pretty much, it's just more of accounting rules versus like an actual liability.
Good, thank you. And the one other question I had on that chart, on the table of the statement of net positions, down at the bottom, under second line from the bottom, actually, unrestricted deficit or unrestricted or a deficit. There's a big unrestricted deficit in the wastewater fund, and I don't know if that, $1,652,000. What does that represent? Because usually the unrestricted funds, I would think of them as in addition to the other funds.
You tend to see that right now with especially with the high bond issuance.
Mm-hmm.
And because like you got to think like it's also too that how it's under accrual accounting too. So then you have to have all these like the net pensions considered into it, the OPEB and everything. So with the unrestricted, it's pretty much, it should be essentially your, whatchamacallit, it's not necessarily your reserve, but it's kind of like your net over everything, right? Over fixed assets, over debt and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of what you actually have in your reserve, because again, like these long-term liabilities are, that you have, it's over the course of 30 years. So you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, but also be aware of it, type of thing. That's probably the best way to describe it, because like, the bond's going to be there for about 30 years essentially. So then you're going to have this thing that's sucking out the unrestricted essentially all the time. So it's an indicator of health, but it's also like you gotta kind of put in perspective in terms of how the district is, right?
I'm not, I'm a little trouble following that.
Huh?
I'm having a little trouble following that exactly.
Okay.
Maybe do we have any experts on the committee who can help with that, because they
So it's essentially like it's assets minus liabilities minus kind of like what fixed assets are there. So then what's left over is probably whatever remaining assets you have. So if you have a deficit like this, it's kind of, it's generally usually not the greatest look on it, but then you got to take it with a grain of salt of what is also getting taken out of it. So you got to think of like its OPEB, pensions, the bond, and everything like that. So you because the bond's going to be there for like what, 30 years. So then is it really that you're taking out like $12.3 million out of your unrestricted essentially versus the investment you have in your fixed assets at this point in cash. So it's kind of, I don't necessarily want to say it's not a good look, but it's also like you got to put in perspective other things that are baked into this calculation. So like, I don't know the best way to put it.
well, I guess my way of thinking, what I always look at as a board member is, how big a threat or how big a cloud is this in the distance that could impact our cash flow? Because our cash flow is kind of what everything boils down to. Is it a problem in a real sense, ultimately a cash flow sense, or is it something that's basically bookkeeping?
It's bookkeeping. Probably the best indicator would be if you see the trend of it increasing throughout the years. That's probably the best indicator of it.
Okay. Yeah. We'll watch it then.
How healthy is this district?
Well, I guess the question is, how healthy is this district? That's what Dave's question was at the beginning.
Yeah.
When you said you give a modified clean opinion, and the only thing that was problematic was this issue that I was familiar with the vacation approval, which I think we resolved. It's complicated to explain, but we resolved it. But obviously we have no going concern problems or anything like that.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Follow up on that, with
Yeah.
vacation accrual. My contract was a little confusing for staff, and so they enrolled me in accruing leave when in my contract, my leave is front loaded, so to speak.
Mhm.
So every year it's front loaded as a whole. So when that finding was found, we reversed it.
Yeah.
So I'm not getting double leave. So it was correct. Cheryl, I promise.
Was this you?
Yes,
This me.
yes.
That's mass vacation, yeah, it was a little bit, there's
But I don't usually take much vacation
about that.
so most of my vacation is just sitting.
I analyzed the employment contracts and set up everyone in payroll, and I didn't ask enough questions initially. And there was some confusion among different stakeholders of how to interpret the employment agreement as well. So, yeah, it's all been resolved.
But now,
Yes.
You're not gonna disappear after Halloween.
any other questions, Karen or Scott, as well as Keith or Dave and Cheryl? Keith?
Yeah, Mr. Hom, I wanted to thank you. I realize that this is probably template, and so a lot of this stuff will just carry forward.
Yeah.
Especially the back matter stuff that provides the explanation, which is something that I strongly needed because of my recent joining the finance committee. So I want to thank you for that, but I did have one other thing. I did find a typo on your page 9. In that spreadsheet that's there, the fourth year down, I think should read 2020 to 2021.
Yes.
Yes, but other than that, I appreciate all of the extra information you guys provided along with it, so I could make sense of the report.
Yes. Thank you. It was very good. It was very good. I mean,
So how many years can this agency do these audits?
How many years?
Yeah, Pam, I think was under the impression that they were only like 3 years.
we can take, we can take that up later, but there's a rule on auditors, which we're actually putting in our bylaw, in our policy, but standard practice is to,
Go out
change auditors, go out to
go out for bid for
for bid
auditors, but it doesn't mean.
5 years.
Leaving as the auditor, but they would change partners.
Change individuals,
Oh,
yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, state code is 5 years per partner. You can
Right.
stay with the firm as long as possible, but the partners has to switch out. So then
Yeah.
me being the reviewing partner, after 5 years, I'm done. Essentially.
And Alex, how many years have you, I think this was year 4,
Let me, I can,
or was you year 5?
3.
I know you did some catch up when you first started.
Yeah, Dave, you remember, don't you, when?
Yeah, I thought this was going to their 3rd year.
Okay.
We can
I
find
wanna
out.
say, I wanna say,
Yeah, it's the 4th year, but I think it's the 4th.
let me double check.
Yeah, the standard,
And didn't you do a couple audits? Didn't you do a couple audits the first year?
Yeah, this is the fifth audit. So then,
fifth audit, which I guess would be, this is the audit, this is the 5th year that you're auditing, because you did a double
Years.
double
Yeah,
duty,
yeah.
because we were so far behind,
Correct.
essentially. So this would be, I guess this would be our last of this run with us.
correct.
Yeah, so,
Yes.
well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I just I'll say about the way this, your run started, it was a big job, a lot of heavy lifting to get things up to date.
And then I
Yeah,
was
really,
very
yeah.
appreciative that he was on, because this is my first audit.
Yeah,
And so Alex was really helpful and instrumental, and I know we're probably a month behind based on last year, and so he was really helpful in kind of teaching me, not teaching me, but helping me along in the process, yes.
We used to get 1 page.
I think we've, unless there are any more questions, I think we've already had a couple of comments. I think it's appropriate at this point to, I mean, have a motion to receive. We're not, obviously, I don't think there's anything we want to change. If we want to correct it, except that one, just that they keep the, page 9, the date, the correct date. I think I had all my.
What date are you looking at?
Oh, on that table, it's like the fourth one down. Fourth one down in that little table.
21.
Yeah. And it's in the MD&A. And, I just.
Hey, Alex, can I go ahead and change that table? Or,
You can go ahead.
okay, that date, okay, thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to receive the report and pass along to the board.
Make a motion to receive the report.
Okay. Second. It's been moved by Mr. Hendrickson, seconded by Mr. McCann to receive the report and it's been convey it on to the board of directors. Roll call of Mr. Hendrickson. Aye. Mr. McCann.
Aye.
Ms. Chrisman.
Aye.
Mr. Pearson.
Aye.
Ms. McDowell.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for 5 years of service, compressed into 4. And, and we'll be, yeah, thank you. And thank you for explaining everything today.
All right. You're welcome. Have a good rest of the day, everyone.
Thank you.
Wait a second. That in-joke made people were watching on Zoom. He has his little avatar there. It's not about the Dodgers. Quite the contrary. Going on to item 4B, I'll have maybe Ms. Fritz introduce this one. Though the relevant people are also here from facilities. This has to do with the how we're going to finance or how we pay for the replacement of the water metering infrastructure.
Yes.
You know, the advanced, not the actual brass bodies, but the
Yeah,
stuff
so,
on top essentially.
you know, we've been having this conversation for a long time and, so this is agenda item 4B, and we're discussing the phasing and payment options for advanced metering infrastructure replacement. So this item went before the board, and I'm trying to find it all. There's a lot of information in here. We kept a lot of kind of basic information just to refresh everyone's memory on the discussions that have happened in the past. But with the last board approval, they approved the sole source to Badger for this project. And it was we were required to bring before the phasing and financing options so that we can move forward with this project. So under fiscal impact, you can see there's a budget of $526,500 already in the budget for this project. And we're estimating approximately $680,000 to complete the project's first phase. So after much discussion and with the failing meters, we have decided that our first phase should be replacing all of the registers in the whole district and getting all of those done and doing the integration with our billing system and with Tyler, and it would be wonderful for all those involved. So we're gonna get that done, and then after that's in place, Mr. Green and Mr. Meeks will be able to calculate or gather a lot of data from replacing the registers that is really needed, which Jim will talk about more, but we will have more information on exactly how to move forward with replacing the brass bodies. And again, Mr. Green can explain more how that happens, but that information is gonna help us determine which brass bodies actually need to be replaced, which ones are still functioning appropriately and everything else. And so we kind of have decided to do that because we're kind of getting to a critical point with our meters where, you know, we're reading, I don't know, 2,000 hand meters. It's troublesome for the admin staff, kind of, we're manually putting them all in. I know you were all aware of the averaging we had to do last billing cycle. So we think that this is the best. I think we're hoping, I'm gonna let Jim put a timeline on when but we're hoping to get this phase of the project done really, really soon. You know, by July or August. So after looking, I put in here in the last section, kind of going through financing. I do have some quotes from financing, which I've included in here. I think it was 4.75%. To get a final quote, I had to have the audit done, which is now done, as well as they need a timeline to get that like final quote of how much, because the market's changing every day. So we're estimating to have approximately 2.7 million of undesignated reserves. So I want to explain that a little bit. It's not, I have a presentation that I use for myself. I didn't want to put it out here, but we have designated reserves for water, so I did not include that. I don't want you to think 2.7 is the full water reserves. We have a lot more in there, but we have designated Stewart Street tanks. There's a lot of projects out there, the water main, the water effluent line and all of that. So 2.7 is what is undesignated. And then I also put in here our current camp investment rate is 5.48%. So that money is being invested right now and earning about 5.5%. So I'm recommending that we go for financing for this. But we could use reserves if the board decides to. So it's really, that's the discussion, I think, for the remaining 680,000. And then I will let Jim speak.
Jim,
Yeah, a little caveat before we get into talk about meters and all that stuff. So, the current Badger read-all software that we have, basically terminated last year. So we're kind of living on this dying body right here. The Badger doesn't offer any more support. Badger doesn't offer any remote support. So if we have any sort of problem downloading or putting this data information into our computer, and it fails, we're hand keying in 4,052 meter reads at admin level and at our level in the streets. So the other key caveat to this is we need that data now. We just completed our electronic annual report, and this is all data driven. How many gallons per day, residential versus commercial. We know we've needed this data for quite a while. So that's the other key driving feature to this. With the budgeted allotment that we have, this is an expensive project from start to finish. But we need those registers in now before we have a major catastrophe and failure. And I think going forward, maybe starting next year, we'll have that total brass change out. We're also applying for a grant for about $500,000 that'll help fund that brass piece. But putting these registers in now is I think more than necessary. So that's why we kind of approach it in this way. And take any questions on that process of thought or
further clarification. And I went on a ride out with Cody and to just see what he had to do for meter reads. And that was 2 months ago. And how many more meters that we had fail on us?
150.
About 150. So he was getting out of his truck
Every time.
every single, I saw Cheryl, I think.
Yeah, you did.
And he's going out of his truck every single time to read.
You got an easy street.
Manual. And that number has gone up by 150, 200, 250. If we wait another 3 months, we'll see another 300 meters. And the efficiency of it is terrible. And staff time that it takes to do that. There's safety issues of the truck running and parking and going 20 more feet, parking it again, getting out. And some of the guys may or may not wear their seat belts because of the amount of time they're getting in and out of the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they're only traveling at 10 miles per hour,
But they're on other people's property.
and other people's property to read meters, but efficiency wise, we have to fix it. So like Jim was saying, this is our best approach moving forward to be able to at least get these meters read quickly, get the data, and then be able to analyze based on the data, which of those meter bodies are failing as we speak, and we can start replacing those in phases. So it's got to be done for staff.
So the 4,000, are you done?
Well, I was asking, Dave, did you want to?
Yeah, I had a bunch of questions, but
Yeah, sure, you go ahead. Yeah, go.
2,052 is a combined residential and commercial?
And internal.
What's,
Internal meters would be like the rodeo grounds. Every lift station has a potable water source there. So we have another, 16 internals?
Plus our
Yeah.
analytics.
Yeah.
you replaced 10. so far,
We have a
right?
pilot program with
And
10.
how did that go?
Fantastic. We found a leak within 2 days. On the
Really?
customer side, yeah.
Hmm.
In fact, we can show you the customer portal. I've showed it in R9 minutes before. I don't know if you want to pull it up. Yeah, it's a fantastic device. It's a fantastic vessel to get data from, even just to provide the customer. You know, it'll help on billing, the start and stop. We won't be dispatching the truck out to someone's property to walk on someone's property to read. We can do it with the click of a mouse. I mean, it boils down to water staff has better things to do than be meter readers.
Yes, they do.
We've got a lot of opportunities for improvement out there. We've got a lot of good ideas, a lot of things that have been in place for half a decade now, and we just need to start executing those and not going door to door.
So Jim, how many of the 4,052 are actually residential?
3,771.
About that, yeah.
It's just under 3,800.
Okay, can we finance that?
Oh, that's what we're,
That's,
we're talking.
yeah, my recommendation is to finance 680,000.
In other words, there's amount that's already budgeted for part of it.
Yes, we have
526,500, which is already there.
526,000 budgeted.
Would that cover the residential?
Oh,
This
yeah.
would cover all of the
All
registers.
meters.
All of them?
Yes. The brass bodies will be a second phase, so this amount does not cover the brass bodies. This is just first phase, which is the registers.
How long will it take to get them in?
What did Kathy say, 2 months to get, so if we did this in like a $400,000 bite the first time, we could get 1,700 meters in a month and probably have those 1,700 meters
Yeah, so
installed
there's,
in a month.
yeah, there's a lead time on him ordering, which we've actually placed our first order because we do have 526,000. So I feel like we're doing this project, the project's already been approved, we have a certain amount of money. We need to give them time to produce them and get them to us. So this is so critical, we're like, let's order with the money we have. And then, you know, if we get this other funding, we'll order more. And then we have to RFP for an installer to come help us install. And so which Cody is working on as we speak to get that underway. So we're hoping with the lead time from that's the hard part with these projects. I know they take a really long time, but there is a lot of manufacturing lead time for these things. So we're but they've been saying 2 months and how long do you think it'll take to install? Like, let's say,
I think we can get half of them in by the time we start our next fiscal year, 24-25. So by July 1st, we should have close to 2,000 of them installed.
Oh, that'd be
We'll be operating dueling systems. We still have that vulnerability with the old Reed Center, not operating efficiently, but at least we'll be halfway there.
By the end of the calendar year, then it should be complete. sounds like.
Absolutely.
By the end of the
Yeah,
calendar.
I mean, I would say hopefully by September.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these rates are, they committed to these rates? They're not gonna fluctuate?
No, they can fluctuate.
Oh, they
This
can.
proposal?
Yeah.
You mean for the
Are you
financing?
talking about the material or the financing piece?
The actual registers, are they?
Oh,
The-
no, his quote is.
Yeah, this materials, those are locked in stone.
These
If
are-
it takes us a year to purchase all that, that is
So
concrete.
we're
Those
not
are-
gonna see a
those are-
rate increase on that?
No, you're not. The materials cost for these will not. rise.
So, and then,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
so with regard to the financing, that would be locked in when we finalize it, and that rate of 4.75 over 3 years would be, locked in for the 5 years. Once we,
Once we finalize,
Right.
I've given them, our audit report, once it gets finalized. I have a meeting with our, financing people, and then, and let them know our target is to go before. Once the board approves it, then we will work on getting that rate locked in. So that would be next month.
but it will be in, once we make. it.
April agenda.
And then
Yeah.
just with regard to the
April
financing,
11th.
looks like you're locked into having the financing for 2 years, if I'm reading this correctly. It's about 73 basis points over our current camp rate. But in year 3, if that were to reverse and we decide to pay out of our own funds, we could then, pay if it was a more favorable rate at that point.
Mhm.
Say our camp rate dropped,
Mhm.
we could then reverse and then take it out with funds. There'd be no penalty for that.
Correct,
But we're locked in, looks like we're locked in for 2 years.
correct.
Okay. That's pretty favorable, it seems.
Yes, Commissioner.
I have small question before Dave gets started.
Take your time.
I have a flume device.
Yes.
Will
It'll
the,
still work.
oh,
Absolutely.
I was reading this, like this would render it,
This will replace it. It won't be obsolete. You can still use it if you like. If you like that version of the customer portal better, go for it. But this,
well, the app on my phone is very convenient, so I.
it is nice, especially those mobile remote. I have a flume. I got to call a Costco one time and it was using 12 gallons a minute. So,
Okay,
yeah, so they work.
It'll still work,
Mhm.
but it's not necessary anymore. I mean,
Well,
there's
no,
gonna be
'cause-
two ways
right.
to learn about a leak. That's what it amounts to.
Mhm. Yeah, the Zoom will notify you. This will notify us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Thank you.
we saying call a plumber.
No, well, we always try and help, but yeah, if it's on your side, the leak is on your side, unfortunately, yeah, the district doesn't touch anything on the customer side of the meter. But yes,
Dave?
Okay,
you ready? Yeah.
we've got some fee in place if it takes more time to replace these registers because people haven't cleared away brush and stuff now. Didn't I see that in a?
There's a ordinance that allows for us to penalize the homeowner if the meter is not accessible.
Okay, good.
3-foot radius.
Okay, and how about digging out all the dirt? Every time.
Go for dirt.
Right.
Gophers.
Yeah. And too much is just about the amount of time where we clean it out and then they just displace the whole box.
Right, it happened in my household.
Yeah.
So my question is, do we have some way of tracking that so that you can start charging people for this or?
There are a couple one-offs, honestly.
Okay,
We have like 2 or 3 frequent offenders.
okay,
And
okay.
Working together.
Running parallel, yeah.
yeah,
Okay, the second question, or did you have a follow-up?
Oh, I just was asking, this ties into our administrative, the ordinance we're also trying to pass. That would be added, I think it's gonna be added, it's on the agenda next month or pretty soon. Yeah. Citation ordinance.
Yes.
Where you can actually have actual citations. For violations of the municipal code. Right now, the municipal code is not as easily enforceable, but by the time this program starts up, I think we would have this administrative citation, ordinance in place, and so that would make it like a lot easier to find people.
It's meant to be a deterrent, though. We don't want to come in
Right.
heavy-handed with this citation program to levy fines. That's not really the goal, but, and I haven't communicated those with Cody, but I did on a ride-along, saw him going through a lot of Gopher dirt, just in the few meters that he did have to read.
Dave, you had more?
Okay, so,
on that note, so when we have a customer that has, they park their car over it, or they park their boat that doesn't operate for years. We're trying to work with them one-on-one to move that meter in a more advantageous location to us both, because if we can't access the meter to read it, we can't shut it off if you have a leak. And then that's a problem. So, anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Door hangers, we're keeping track of where we leave them too.
Right, so, yeah,
So we do keep a record of who we notify to clear out meters.
and with these new meters, there will be that antenna signal sort of in the top, that will need to face the sky, so parking on them or getting obstructions on them full-time will block that signal. So that's why we're trying to be advantageous prior to this installation, that if they need to move or it's not in a good place, let's go ahead and work with that ratepayer and get their meter moved in a better location.
Yeah. Dave, any more?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So at one point, you were talking about the 10% bench test, bench
Mhm.
testing. Do you do that bench testing now?
We've done probably 5% of the system and just never found that it was that egregious of we're in the plus or minus 1% of all AWWA standards at that time. But do we know there's some meters that are underperforming in the system? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. At 20 years, you can expect like a 1 to 3% degrade in accuracy, and we're well over 20 years now in all of our residentials. So.
Yeah. So are you gonna have to bench test? When you find out that some of the meters aren't, the brass bodies are not good, are you gonna have to take that out, bench test it to prove that it's not good?
No,
Just-
no,
Wait,
that's more of a, it's not really a requirement, but the state would like you. They have their,
yeah, but that's ridiculous.
right, yeah, they also, yeah, right, for a lot of meters, but they want 10% a year bench tested. So yeah, that would be 400 meters a year at the tune of $200 a meter. And that's just not financially feasible. So, yeah. You know, we do bench tests though for customers that say, yeah, per their request, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it's also a long time the meter's out of ground. It's out of the ground for about 3 months. So you're going through at least a billing cycle or 2 billing cycles with a foreign meter in there that we're having to manually read then and do that. So
So are these, are they recyclable?
the brass bodies and the plastic, yeah, you bet. Yeah, we'll recycle all these. Yeah.
Recycle, you can't refurbish. Okay, you're not gonna refurbish.
But you can recycle.
Well, you could refurbish, but at the price of $150 for an internal unit to manually remove that and sometimes it's not 100% accurate after you do that
But
as
they
well.
are
But
recyclable.
Yes.
recyclable, yes.
Brass, yeah.
Plastic, yeah. Yeah, it's red brass. You actually get a pretty fair amount for red brass.
Really?
Yeah.
Where would we send it to?
Yeah, probably.
China wants it.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
I had a question about, this, before I guess, maybe this is too technical, but you talk about how when we have these, the units that we're putting in now on the brass bodies, you can tell better which brass bodies need to be replaced. How does that work exactly?
By consumption numbers.
Like consumption numbers,
Yeah.
you see consumption numbers that are not, seem odd in a way. In other words, there seems to be.
We can, so we can get
Yeah.
all that data, minute data,
Yeah.
hourly data. So if we see that meter's only spinning, once a week or, once a month.
Okay, yeah.
And we know these are full-time.
That's what I'm saying.
inhabitants.
It'd be way out of,
Yeah.
way below what you'd expect in
Right.
at a particular
Right.
spot. You can't really do that now, right?
Right, and unfortunately, with just replacing the register or the endpoint, that's not the body, so that's just, that's kind of the tattletale, right? That's not the actual calculator. So that, when we replace those bodies, you will see probably like, I'm not gonna quote numbers, I'll just throw like, probably about a 10% increase in invoicing when we do that. So we'll get that.
In other words, when you replace this, when you do this, you'll have more,
Not the register,
not
but
the
the
register,
actual
the
bodies,
box, yeah.
but just the
No.
bodies, yeah. So we'll probably have a lot of people saying, I've never used over 4
Yeah,
units in
Oh,
20 years.
Don't go there.
So then the expectation, once these registers are in, is that we do about 10% of the bodies on average every year, replacing them, or is that?
We had looked into that. I think over the lifetime, you're increasing the project about 30%.
Mhm.
So if we can get this financing, this funding next year for that $500,000, and we can budget $500,000 like we've done and encumber that like we have, I think $1 million to replace those bodies in 1 year in one shot. Again, we're not doing our 10% for the state, but I think that's a better way to attack this.
Yeah. I agree.
We'll have the data on
Right.
what's not performing, not reading accurately. We'll get those replaced first. The second half of that year, we'll replace the remainder.
And the one thing to remember too is we also have the influent line project coming up.
We do.
So
That's-
we're gonna have, so again, trying to look at these projects in total, not in a vacuum, right? We have other things that we're gonna have to fund, finance. So,
Yeah.
we'll have to balance the needs that we have, because this won't be the only project we're looking to finance.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm a carpe diem guy, but you can't look at those numbers and know that you can get all this stuff done in a year. And we gotta get that transition line
do.
done. So that's 2 million right there. So
Well,
I mean, it's
that
just
we,
residential.
Well, wait, I still have some questions. Yeah, I have a couple, go ahead, Keith, 'cause I have a couple of questions too. Keith.
Okay, because, my past was at Diablo Canyon and I was responsible for ordering, and so I would see vendors orders that look like this, but this order tells me nothing. It tells me part numbers, but it doesn't tell me which is the body, which is the meter.
It's a,
Can you tell me which is what?
So line one, if we start from the top down, that is the,
for everybody, that's page 65 of our agenda.
that is the physical endpoint that will go on the meter. We need 4,094 of them because we have 4,052 connections with so many compound meters that have 2 dials on 1 meter.
Okay, now, as I look at that, the very last thing that it says is 24 pack. Normally, with my vendors, 24 pack would mean there's 24 in a case or whatever. Is the price relative to actually the unit price and not to a pack price?
Yes, it's the individual unit price.
Okay, all right, so it's really, you're not getting 4,094 24 packs. Because that question goes on down, yeah.
Line item 2 is AT&T signal. Verizon is line item 3. It's a Verizon dominant service area.
And we did a penetration with Verizon rather and AT&T so we can see what areas would be required, and that's how we established that number. And we've actually done some of those by trial and error where we put in a AT&T and it didn't read and on our pilot run, so we knew that Verizon would obviously fit, so.
Before you go on, Cody, will AT&T's applications before the Public Utilities Commission have anything to do, affect this at all?
No,
Okay,
this is cellular.
okay.
Okay, that's actually hardware for AT&T and Verizon.
Yes.
Yeah.
That will transmit.
Yeah.
It's like their SIM card,
Yeah.
for like a better term.
Line 4, 6, and 7 deal with the programming of the meters. When we get the meter, they all assume that they're 3/4 inch body. So that'll be with the installation. You go out and say, oh, this is a 1 inch meter, this is on. This is a 2 inch meter that this is on. And then line 5 with the 4,900, 128 quantity, that is, I guess, the charge that Badger charges us for those reads for 1 year. That's 83 cents a read per meter for the billing cycle.
Okay, so that means that this is gonna be a recurring cost.
It is.
Yeah, that's the
It is.
uploaded 1 year cost.
It's the cost of data.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's not a one-time deal.
No.
Okay, when you were describing it, the 2 pieces, the brass piece, whatever that, I can't picture what this
Why
looks
don't you
like.
pull it up here?
Yeah, the brass piece and the meter piece, or whatever that is. This is the brass piece? Is that the brass piece?
The brass is the body, that gray piece of plastic with those boxes, those are your digits, that's the register input. That's what we'll be replacing first, is just that gray piece.
The brass body includes the mechanism inside that turns.
Okay, and all of that is line 1?
And the brass bodies are not.
Line 1 would be just the interface face with the numbers on it.
It doesn't go with the brass
Just
bodies.
the
This is not
dial
including the brass
base.
bodies.
Yeah, there's no
So
brass
So
body.
you've got the actual endpoint,
Okay.
that's Verizon or AT&T, and you've got the register there.
Okay, so where are the brass points and the registers on here?
No brass on.
No
this.
brass on it, this is just for the register.
We're just doing registration.
This is just registering the endpoints, the respective cellular endpoints.
All right, so you'll need to return for brass,
Commercial and
Yes.
brass
residential.
bucks.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
and that's why we want that hopefully grant funding.
Okay, well, that helps because that was, yeah. Especially when you started explaining what these other ones were. Let's see, you had mentioned that there's gonna be, some additional contractor support that you're gonna need.
Mhm.
Do we have a number there? Do we need to?
We reached out to one just to get numbers kind of down, just for financing reasons of what we're preparing for.
Sure.
And then going out to RFP, that's where they do the competitive bids for us.
Right.
So I believe close
We're in the process of penning an RFP right now
Okay.
for
Oh,
installation.
it's for installation.
Yeah,
This-
we still in-house, we'll do as much as we can.
Sure, and you can handle that with your normal workload.
So I
We
was
can mix it in.
thinking-
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's it. So do we have a wag as to, a guess as to what the contractor costs are gonna be?
We do, you have some,
It's
Is it big money?
the registers are about $45 a meter to
install
replace,
this? Okay.
yeah.
Can I?
Oh,
There it is. It's a really ridiculous question, but does John Hancock College have a tech school for plumbers
Okay.
that maybe you can tap into and they can get credit for doing? I'm,
So there's a couple things. So we've tried to get temporary help just to read meters before.
okay,
And, first of all, they're very hard to find.
okay.
Alexander, I won't even go down there, but,
Okay.
a lot of them to work on this, require that D certification.
Well, I was just thinking of a school, a tech school,
Right, well,
where they might get some credits for doing some install.
I think
I
you
don't
need,
know.
I think you need certification though, don't you?
yeah, so,
Some degree.
I don't know. if John
I like the
Hancock
idea, but what I don't like is
requests it.
now you've got a 18-year-old kid who's never worked on plumbing
Well,
before,
if they're-
touching your side of the meter.
I don't care if they're in school.
Okay,
I don't-
I'm just worried about the vulnerability of the line.
We're actually getting,
This thing of ridiculous,
we're actually getting into
a
beyond.
vocational school.
Oh,
I'm just,
Yeah.
We're getting beyond the topic because this is not about the financing for the replacement of the
Okay.
registers.
okay.
And it's about reading meters, so it's another
This
problem
one has
entirely.
all.
So let's, I had, and for any other questions, Keith, you had another question, yeah?
I do. We're talking about the gopher dirt and then the signal that comes off of this has to go vertical in order to get clear. Does it work when the gophers have packed that box with dirt?
yes, so the register will be on the meter. And then the AT&T or Verizon signal will be mounted through the lid.
Oh, so it's
Yeah.
above the surface.
Yes,
Yes.
so we have to keep lids and above clear.
Okay, so and that's, so obviously that's got some kind of protection on it, so that.
The lids,
Yes.
new lids are part of the installation, right? I mean.
They're separate, they're not
Separate.
included in this, but we've been kind of stocking up on them in anticipation of this. Let's see if I can.
Yeah, I had a question about the financing side, about the, I noticed you, this day before, Denise, that the, camp, you compare the camp investment rate, to the financing rate, which looks like it's positive, the financing case looks positive there. But, how do we, hopefully ensure that that advantage continues? The camp investment rate is very short-term money, isn't it? And we don't know in 5 years or 3 or 4 years if basically what's money market related things would be down lower and would be paying higher interest. Do we have any way of maybe locking in that kind of rate through our investment advisors?
For camp.
Well, I don't know, this is through our investment advisors, they're also involved in it, aren't they? It's Camp to the State program, I know, but,
Correct. I
Yeah.
have not gone through our investment advisors.
but
They don't, for the investment, one thing, so the investment advisors to lock in a rate for our returns.
we'll have some money, if you have somebody in five-year
We do,
investment.
we do have money in 5-year
Parallel
investments,
to
and I did not look at that rate. I could, for the board meeting, I can definitely, kind of section that out and ask them what our 5-year
Mhm.
rate is, because not all of our money is in camp, right? Like,
Right,
a lot of our money is in other things, so I could get a clearer picture on what our 5-year rate is, and then also like what Mr. McCann pointed out, we're really locked in for 2 years. If the rates become unfavorable the other way, we could just,
Refinance it, yeah.
or just pay it. Yeah, just pay it off at that
Right,
point.
okay. Thank you.
But I will, for the board meeting, I will, bring the 5-year, whatever we have in 5-year long investments and see what that rate is.
Yeah. I think I've already called public comment, just in case.
Cody, did you have the estimate for installation? I think that was asked.
Oh,
To the speak.
40, like,
It's based off one of the quotes we got, it's looking about 250,000 for install.
For all 1,000+ meters, yeah.
But there might be less, because our staff is gonna help out.
Yeah, we'll take a
And if you know
significant
anything about
chunk.
our staff, they kind of go above and
I
beyond.
suggest you start digging.
We can't dig too early.
Yeah, yeah. No further questions or discussions. I'll entertain a motion here.
Just a finance question,
Yes.
and then I'm done.
Yeah.
Because there's so many other things out there in the mix, are there any thresholds where, like at 250K, you get this interest bracket, and this at 500K, which is closer to what we're looking for, it becomes this bracket? To where it might make sense to split, use part of the uncommitted funds and part financing to supplement that?
I would have to ask our, I'm gonna meet with our lender that we typically, and he's gonna talk me through the process. So I can ask him that question.
Use the term undesignated reserves. That's the same as unassigned.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would, yeah, we need to
Our technical-
pin down our nomenclature, but
Okay, there you go.
I'm undesignated.
So I'll entertain a motion made up.
Okay, I move to recommend phasing and payment from staff recommendations to the board of directors.
It's been a second. So it's been moved and seconded that we recommend the I guess is the phasing and payment, phasing and financing proposed financing options for advanced metering infrastructure replacement to the board of directors. I'll take a roll call. Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Henriksen?
Aye.
Mr. McCann? Aye. Ms. Prisman?
Aye.
And Ms. McDowell? Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Can you go without the, with just the registers and not the whole repertoire?
Yeah, just the meter reads will degrade and, not.
So yeah, the motion was to accept the
Registers and.
staff proposal for financing of the project
And then the last one they prorate.
as proposed.
And yeah, and I'll prepare and I'll make some adjustments based on your comments for this motion.
One more item. This is in fact, I maybe have Ms. Fritz introduce this one too. Item 4C was to discuss and consider appointing an ad hoc subcommittee on allocation of administrative overhead. I think, as I mentioned earlier, this is an extension of the task that we assigned to the budget policy review committee last year. And this is specific. This was the one item that they decided was too complicated to tackle with the information they had available to them at the time. And Ms. Fritz, you wanted this, you proposed this for the agenda, so maybe you could explain a little bit what you're looking for.
So our budget policy ad hoc committee, which I'm sorry, I don't have the names of who was involved in that, and my brain is not going back that far. We've revised the policy, but when it came down to the overhead allocation, which I think we all felt the current methodology is not sufficient or very clear on how they chose the metrics, we wanted to adjust that. And we took some stabs at how to do that, and Mr. Pearson was on it, I know that. He helped a lot with the work on that, and there was just no clear, because we also have to look at the sustainability of the costs for each department and everything else. And so we decided to go forward with reviewing the policy and updating it with the current overhead allocation, with the understanding that we were going to continue to work on the overhead allocation and kind of revamp it for our current environment, and with some different metrics that were a little bit easier to, I guess, justify and understand. And this is a continuing, Manager Mulhaney and I had a conversation about this yesterday, just coming up in our regular business. So I think this is a good time for us to assign a new ad hoc committee just specifically to look at the overhead allocation, and then that would go into the budget policy.
So it sounds like it doesn't have to be. I think Dave was on it.
Scott.
and Scott was on,
Scott came on, initially it was myself,
and, Amy,
Cindy,
Cindy, yeah.
Cindy and I
So
were
it doesn't have to be the same people.
joined me.
I would, I think I would like to see a two-member committee. Three members is, technically legal under the Brown Act, but, in some ways, two members is a little bit, well, first of all, scheduling might be a little bit easier for all of you. But it also doesn't create a committee which composes a majority of the, working majority of the board, which is really not the idea of an ad hoc committee. So two people who may or may not have been on this topic before. Scott, were you on? So you were on that committee. You joined the committee. Yeah. I'll take two volunteers because I think everybody certainly is capable of doing the work. Wants to be on it. But also start pointing to people. Dave's familiar with it.
If each would like somebody different.
Maybe, no, not different.
No, I'm happy with whoever would like to.
Yeah, yeah.
And Dave is very familiar, and he had a plan that I just wasn't able to like run numbers on to see.
Yeah, my plan was not the best. And I agree with you, there needs to be some that are looking what.
Yeah, any plan we come up with, I'm gonna have to run numbers on everything, to see what is the real effect.
Also, aren't you going to be doing trying to track, actual
That is
time?
the discussion too. Do we want to do a direct model, indirect versus indirect, or a combination with, so I gotta look at all of the expenditures. I think kind of talks about like some sort of direct. I think some sort of hybrid is my favorite plan.
Maybe for Keith's benefit, I think, Scott, you know what the problem was, but you were on the committee, but for real newcomers' benefit, the problem that came up was, there was a simple formula, like basing it on the past year's, the amount of spending budget to a certain function, and making that making the administrative allocation based on that. What it did, it took a lot of money away from fire department. Basically, they paid more in their allotment went up. And so their working budget went down.
Yes, I was trying to simplify it.
Yeah, and so it kind of created more problems for the departments that already had problems.
And the current methodology is it takes a big group of our expenditures and says, it's being allocated based upon effort, which is a very subjective thing, so I don't like that. And that effort is translated into percentages. And there's no sort of written document of how that was assessed. And so we need to like.
Do a deep dive.
Yes.
It's like staff time allocated to different departments. So nobody wants to pay for us. And doesn't want to pay. Chief doesn't want to pay for us. Yeah, but the admin department has got to be allocated somewhere. And so when we're looking at the division of effort or division of work, so for instance, Miriam Torres does a lot of payroll billing,
Water, right? Water.
for water,
Yeah.
So a lot of her, I would say 99% of her time is dedicated.
What's it gonna be after the new registers are, right?
Exactly.
That's gonna be.
Well, that's
Right,
changed,
so-
but, so better things now, Miriam's job is morphed into, she does payroll and other things. But like, our new, front desk person, which.
I haven't announced it yet,
Oh,
but.
okay.
But congratulations, Scott.
Maybe formally announce it, but, I don't know if any of you have met our, front desk
Sign up for this.
person, his name is, Scott.
It's actually.
And he, have any of you met him?
Yep.
Yeah.
Very, very.
It's not cheap.
No, it's not.
He's accepted our permanent position for the front desk, but he, I would say, is 99% water, wastewater.
Okay, so you get a flavor of what the job would be a deep dive. It'd be, looking at, I don't know, timesheets and all kind of great stuff. Not so much that way.
Well,
We should
no,
go through position descriptions.
Yeah.
So if we look at position descriptions for all of those admin and their main role, then you can try to assign those salaries, overhead, is more closely associated with the department. That's,
Yeah, but we have to come up with a methodology that's sustainable too, like we're on, writing down his time on the, I mean, we could go that route, right? Like a lawyer, writing down how much he's, billable hours and stuff. I don't think we wanna go that way, but another one that I wanna dive into is like our lawyer expenses. Like, those are usually more itemized, which we maybe could assign costs, especially like when we're doing specialized costs that we could assign to different departments.
They're all with administration now, right? All lawyers.
We pay it all, but we distribute it.
You distribute it.
Yes.
Sure. So anyway, first of all, I'll ask for volunteers and I'll take a decision here. Keith, you want to try? Sure. But one more down. Dave, you want to do it again or you want to?
Yeah, I'm willing to do it again.
Scott?
I'd be willing, but yeah.
kind of default to Dave. Dave's the.
I'll appoint, Mr. Hendrickson and Mr. Pearson to the new subcommittee. And, we'll be working obviously with Ms. Fritz primarily, the general manager too.
And a grateful nation thanks you.
Yes.
So I'll set up a introductory meeting.
Delivered later.
for us.
So she'll take that. And then this is,
This is our only subcommittee right now, really.
the only active one, yeah. I mean, I think,
So reserve policy has died, is that correct?
well.
Well, it was successful,
Yes.
Karen.
Yeah.
We changed the terminology.
Well, the reserve policy, yeah, the proposal went to the board. The board is doing, I think it's coming back with a little bit of tweaking, massaging. But it's at the board level. And then, of course, there's the revenue enhancement, which is another one that's going to the board in April, for a presentation, which I think all of you, all three of you, the members, will be available. I think. Yeah. So.
They've been
to you to. On the future agenda item. For. Yeah.
One of my questions is,
Yeah.
do you want a PowerPoint presentation on that revenue enhancement?
Availability for questions.
Meeting or not?
Yeah, but he's.
I think it would be a good idea, just for visuals for the public, that are on Zoom, for the board, kind of give.
Just kind of summarizing,
Yeah.
making points.
Get a lot of.
It's, yeah.
I don't have anything else to do.
That'd be a great idea. It's gonna be,
Is there, Haley, can you send me a template that you'd want, maybe use on PowerPoint template? PowerPoint template.
so, future agenda items.
Budget.
I'll ask anybody who has,
Budget's gotta be coming, right? April?
Yes, well,
we have some that are already kind of.
yeah, the budget will be on there for sure.
Baked in the cake, yeah, budget and,
The fourth quarter report will be in April.
Would you guys like to review the utility CIP list for water and wastewater?
That will come through the preliminary budget.
Okay.
yeah.
We'll have that ready.
Another one we were talking about, in fact, it was mentioned, I think, in the minutes here, investment policy. I think you'd mentioned that, and we were gonna bring that up. We were gonna, at one point, do it this meeting, we put it, ahead. And the other one that was mentioned last meeting, and this is another ad hoc committee, I think, would be coming out of this, would be the long-term investment, the long-term budget policy. What the term we used was long-term financial planning. Ms. Fritz has started working on a template for that. And this is something that's, going to be obviously input from resources and infrastructure, R&I committee, resources and infrastructure committee, because it has to do with capital, but we're trying to work on a system for developing a 10-year plan. And the next meeting, again, this is again, I think this would be involve the appointment of a ad hoc subcommittee to work on this,
On the long term.
a long-term plan, yeah.
So I've already developed what was kind of in my brain. I put it on paper for the water department, which helped me analyze for this presentation. And I did share that with President Gray just to get his feedback if he thought I was on like the right path. And so, yes, I think it would be a good idea for me to share that with an ad hoc committee and get feedback before maybe I bring it for the larger audience. As well as last board meeting, the CIP list, where we need to like work through a process. And I mean, I think that was gonna go through as ad hoc committee, but I don't know if the board needs to appoint that.
That was gonna be a board level, I
Okay.
think, yeah, board level, it's probably gonna be me and Michael and Michael Thomas.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right.
I did just read that. Sorry.
I wanted to find out.
I went on vacation after the board meeting, so my brain's still.
Any other, any other ideas from the committee,
The rate
future items?
increases.
I'll bring up.
Are you gonna bring up the rate increases?
The rate,
Are we gonna increase it
the
on
new rates,
That's on the board agenda
to
for,
the board agenda? Okay,
it's our last year of the progressive rate increase.
I think there's two more.
well, no, actually, this is, yeah, I thought, this is the rate increases that are already
This is,
approved, pre-approved, and, is not CPI.
It is
As I
not?
understand, it's not CPI,
It-
that's
it
next
was-
time.
Yeah, so this is the last rate increase that was on the rate study done by, Bartle Wells.
Oh, yeah.
So, then after this, the board has the option to increase it by CPI for the
this is the
next
5 year.
5 years,
For the
yeah.
Fourth and fifth year.
Yeah, for the fourth and fifth year. So those sums could be.
So, but you can, the board can decide to go lower than what has been suggested too.
So when are they potentially going before the board?
May,
In May.
May,
I mean, I think we were gonna, have a look at them. We can do that. Our options are limited.
Well, I
on
think
these, though.
this rate increase that was designated, I wasn't here for the rate study. So I don't know if our financing was tied to having these set rate increases.
It is probably,
Because that was what
yeah,
we.
the
we
waste,
put
on
out
the
there.
wastewater side
So I
especially.
think we have some wiggle room. I mean, I guess you could not approve them. I'm not sure. I'd have to read through the language of that. I wasn't here for that, but I think for the CPI increases subsequently in year 4 and 5, the board could
Yeah.
not go up to CPI, do a smaller percentage or do
Yes.
none. That would be in year 4 and 5.
So just to recap, we, third year, for the first 3 years, there's no increase in the WRF
that's right.
rates. So there's nothing to talk about there. And there's a allowable, I think it's 6% in water annually and 7% in wastewater annually, or something like that, 5.5. So those are maximums. The board can approve less, but as Denise was saying, our financing, our bond issue, may kind of lock us in to that increase on the wastewater side. Not the water side, the wastewater side. And of course, our financing needs on the water side probably are gonna lock us in too. Maybe not legally lock us in, but we have a tight, we don't have a lot of wiggle room. So, we'll consider it for a future meeting here, but I think, my thinking is that we probably don't have that much to discuss this time around. Yeah.
Another thing that has been, might be challenging, I don't know if it says, is to change the format of the billing.
Oh, this is the next door. The next door issue.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
We're gonna be researching with Tyler. It would cost us money to change it, so we're gonna get an cost estimate. And then, we're gonna get a cost estimate on how that would change, and then I'm assuming if we determine that was necessary, we could have input.
I
on
guess
what-
us
what a
seniors
bill-
can't read our bills.
Well, you'll have this wonderful customer portal that at least you can look at your water consumption on.
And we're in the middle of implementing a new payment system where it's gonna be really nice. You can go, there's gonna be a dashboard where you can see everything really easily. So that's happening in the next
Electronic payment.
Correct.
E-payment.
We put some thought to monthly billing once AMI is complete and fully operational.
Mhm. Which is, I didn't think that around for a long time.
Okay.
Is that a good sign?
It's gonna be, you know, an issue.
Yeah.
That's all.
So were we gonna assign people to the long-term financial planning ad hoc or no?
We'll.
Or you want to put it on the agenda?
Oh, on the
Okay.
agenda, yeah, we
Okay.
can't do that now,
Okay.
yeah. Put that on the agenda, yeah. Any other suggestions for future items? I think we're actually done then. Well, I thank everybody for coming and for the very good questions. Fruitful discussions. We'll meet next month. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.